this big giant pond by this mill, so sorry for any background noise, but we're here to see if we can catch some bullfrogs. Now, when most people go out to catch bullfrogs, they would use a hook or they just gig the bullfrogs, and I'm not going to eat them, so I'm not going to do that. I am going to use a hook, but I'm going to trim the hook as I've already done, so the point isn't on it, and really the only reason I have it here is so that it will keep the frog on the lure. And when I say frog, I don't mean bullfrog, I mean frog lures. I'm using these Strike King frog lures, and bullfrogs are cannibalistic, so they will eat anything that they can catch, including other bullfrogs. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to poke this through this lure, and this little spring here should keep it in place. And because the point isn't on the lure, it should not hurt the frog at all. And bullfrogs are such pigs that even if there is no hook in their mouth, they will hold on to it even if they're not hooked. They're such aggressive eaters that they'll just keep it in their mouth and not spit it out and allow you to reel it all the way in. So without further ado, we're going to launch these kayaks and hopefully go out and catch some good-sized bullfrogs. Before we start catching critters, I want to show you what a lot of the big creatures like turtles and bullfrogs are eating, and that's mosquito fish. Alright, got one. Now this one right here is just a little guy. The mosquitoes lay their eggs in the water. The eggs become larvae, which is the stage that this fish eats, and they never hatch to suck people's blood. Alright, so we're out here in this pond. I'm trying to be kind of quiet so we don't scare anything. I got my frog lure, and I didn't mention this in the beginning, but not only are we looking for frogs, but we're also looking for turtles, and those aren't going to bite the lure. I'm not sure we're going to see any, but if we do, that'd be really cool. I see some bullfrogs right here, so I'm going to try to go ahead and catch them. Actually, stay on the lure, bringing it right in front of a frog. He didn't want it. Let go. What you look for in a big bullfrog is if you can see the eardrum. Usually if it has a very big eardrum, it's a big frog. Also how far apart the eyes are, and sometimes how high the head will sit off the water. A big bullfrog's heavier, so it's going to sink down farther. American bullfrog, and once you catch them, they play dead like that. This one, I can tell, is a male. The eardrum, which is that part right there, is a lot bigger than the eye. You can also tell it's a male because if I flip him over, he's got a lot of yellow under his throat. Now, here in Northern California, these frogs are an alien species. They were brought here by people, mostly to feed largemouth bass, which were also brought by people. Bullfrogs are non-native, so they eat a lot of other frog species and basically any other animal they can catch and fit in their mouths, including other bullfrogs. This one is about average sized, not huge. They've got really beautiful blend colors, and they blend in really well with their environment. I'm holding him by the leg, Ooh, he's so slimy. Now, if I let him right here, see how perfectly he blends in? Very cool creature. And he really is trying to make me think he's dead. Now, one thing about these frogs that you might notice is they've got an amazing amount of webbing between their toes. And that's for paddling around in this ecosystem. And these are the perfect predators. And I think we can let this guy go and see if we can catch a bigger one now. Here you go, buddy. There he goes, off like a rocket. That's this big bullfrog. Got it. Yeah, it's a good one. Okay. And because there's no hook in it, it just slid right out. Good bullfrog, big old male. And these ones are the ones that do the croaking in the springtime. Look at that bullfrog. Great coloration. I love how green these frogs are. And you can't really see it right now, but if I can get him to open his eyes, there we go. If you do this, you can see there's an eyelid that allows him to see underwater. If I kind of push his eyeballs down, see that? You can still see his eye, but there's an eyelid that's covering it. See it go down as he opens his eye? Close your eyes one more time, buddy. There you go. One more time. That's pretty cool. Now these frogs, hold him by the legs so he can't escape. This does not hurt the frog in any way, and he's not hurt at all from biting the lure. This is a pretty good sized one. This is the size that eats the little babies. These frogs, like I said earlier, are non-native, and a lot of places they don't like them because they eat the native frog species. It's just a really cool frog. Well, we caught another male bullfrog, about the same size as the last one. This one I think is probably the biggest one we've caught today. If you ever come across one of these in the wild, it's best to just leave them alone. Reptiles and amphibians can sometimes carry salmonella, which is why after this I'm going to clean my hands very, very well. Let this guy go. Just like that. Got a turtle. Yes. When I saw his head over there, I didn't know if it was a turtle or not, so I kind of went slowly, but as soon as I saw it duck under the water, I paddled over there as fast as I could, and I knew I couldn't jump out of my boat, because then it would probably tip over and I'd never get it back to shore. So I just stuck my hand down there, I reached around, I felt his shell, and I pulled it out, and this is probably one of the most difficult ways of catching turtle. Usually it's easiest in the springtime when they're moving up into smaller creeks and rivers. This is probably an adult turtle. They do get a little bit bigger than this, but this is about the average size you find them. They've got really beautiful beautiful coloration on the underside of their shells. Turtles have two different parts of their shell. The upper part is the carapace, that's the part that you can see, and the lower part is the plastron. And in these turtles, it's pretty big. It's not hingeable like certain species. Certain species can completely enclose their shell, and other species like snapping turtles have very, very small plastrons. Now these turtles in some parts of the world are endangered, and that's because of various factors. A big problem for these turtles is red-eared sliders. That's the sort of turtle that you'd find in a pet store with the little red dot on the side of their head. They outcompete these turtles. They're from the southern states. These turtles are found mostly in the northern states. I've had a pet red-eared slider, and when I was done with them, I didn't let him go, because that's how red-eared sliders get introduced. That people are like, oh, my turtle's big now, I can't keep him in a 20-gallon aquarium, I gotta let him go. So they take him down and let him go, and they make more babies, and they outcompete these little guys. When my red-eared slider got too big, I took him back to the pet store, and I found somebody who was actually looking to buy a red-eared slider and said, hey, you want a red-eared slider? Here you go, it's yours. I've had both as pets. Western pond turtles are definitely better pets. However, I would not recommend that you catch them and keep them as pets, because they do get pretty big as turtles go. and you know, they require probably a 50-gallon tank. Mine, when I had him, he was only about this big, and once he got bigger than that, I figured, okay, it's probably time to let him go, and I took him back to exactly where I caught him and let him go. I was hoping we catch one today. I was thinking our chances were pretty slim because they're just so fast. When they see a predator, they dive straight to the bottom, and I was lucky because he probably thought he was safe because he had this layer of vegetation over him. They're pretty common throughout California, Washington, Oregon, those states. They like this sort of slow-moving ponds or rivers. This guy is actually pretty cooperative. He's sticking his head out, letting us see him. I love their eyes. They've got really pretty, beautiful eyes. And I think, dude, it's probably time to let this little guy go. Put him right here so you can watch him crawl off. Right down to the depths. Now we've really concluded our epic day of catching awesome critters. Thank you guys for watching. As always, be safe, be smart, and have a lot of fun.